Hi everybody, my name is Charlie Chedester with Midwest Family Lending. Looking forward to help you with your financial literacy education now that we've partnered with the ADM schools. So welcome, I'm glad to be here and look forward to working with you throughout the different sessions and answering questions and giving you some good ideas. Today we're going to talk with the end in mind, meaning you can't really have a good short-term goal unless you know where you want to go in the future. So that long-term goal, that's called net worth. And net worth is a lot of different things to different people. But most importantly, it's confusing for people. We want to make sure you understand how you calculate your net worth, assets and liabilities, and help go through that process so you're not scared and just putting off and therefore delaying things and making things worse for yourself. So let's start with a little commercial video clip. This is a public commercial that's been aired on TV. So let's check it out and we'll see what you think.
Hey Clark, what you got there?
It's my number. It's the amount I need to save to retire the way I want. Is that your number?
Yeah.
A gazillion, huh?
Gazillion, bazillion. It's just a guesstimation.
Oh, how do you plan for that?
Well, I blindly throw money at it and hope something good happens.
So you really don't have a plan?
I really don't.
Do you know your number?
All right, I don't know about you, but that commercial kind of makes me laugh and it kind of confuses me at the same time. And the confusing part is, what do those numbers mean? The part that makes me laugh, well, gazillion. I don't know what that is. All I know is it does not sound good. It's not something I want to strive for. Now, when we look at the different options that you see in the driveway with the guy who has a number, he knows what's going on, and the guy in the bushes who just doesn't know, he's just kind of winging it. I'm sure you can kind of tell which one's the better way to go. You don't have to have your number. You don't have to understand how to calculate the number. We're going to work on some details so as you go through life, you can take piece by piece and make advances on those and set your goals accordingly. So let's start with what net worth is. Net worth is going to be how much you are worth when you take how much your assets are worth minus your liabilities. What's an asset and liability? Well, let's go with an asset. Cash is an easy asset. What do you have in your pocket? What do you have in your checking account, savings account? A lot of people carry CDs, investments, money markets, that type of thing. You also have assets in the things you own. Your house is an asset. Your car can be an asset. Electronic equipment. I'm sure you guys all have electronic equipment. Those can be assets, but we got to make sure we know what assets are, which is how much can you sell it for, not how much did you buy it for. So that's a big key in calculating. We got to make sure we make good investments and good purchases. On the liability side, well, let's go with car loan. Most importantly, credit cards. You have good liabilities and bad liabilities, and this is one of those things that's a great tool. Credit cards can be a huge help. They can also be a huge deterrent in helping you succeed. They can pull you down if you don't understand how they work and what you need to take and do to make sure that it is something that helps you and not something that holds you back. So, liabilities are anybody that you owe. Person, company, whatever it may be. But you have your assets. If you were to sell everything, your liabilities, if you were to pay them all off, the difference between your two is net worth. So what are you valued at? As you're young, you're going to probably have a negative net worth. As you get older, the goal is to grow that net worth, just like in that commercial. How much does it take for you to retire and play down the road? A lot of people worry about playing right now. The net worth piece is making sure that you can play later in life and not work until you're 100 years old. I know I don't want to. So, that being said, your short-term goals and your long-term goals are all very important, but the long-term goal with that net worth is going to dictate what your short-term goals are. So let's go into how do you do that. So you've got Plan A and Plan B. Plan A, let's win the lottery. Okay, that's not a bad idea. I'd love to do that myself. But if you look at the statistics, you've got 70% of lottery winners that squander their winnings within however many years of winning the lottery. That's not a good number. That gives you a 30% chance of success if you're a lottery winner. I don't know about you, but I think you have better success continuing your education, getting a job, and doing it little by little. The other option is maybe being an NBA star. Okay, well, you make millions of dollars every year. There's an ESPN documentary called Broke that shows a large number of those professional athletes that make millions of dollars. They don't have anything by the time they're done. They squander it away. They don't understand how the system works. All the more important if you think you're going to come across a windfall of money. Those two options are something most people look at and say, I can do that, look how much money I have, we're good. Well, most of them squander it because they don't understand the basic principles. So let's jump into you and I. We can be very successful or we could just pinch pennies and get by. No matter what the situation, you need to understand how the system works, so you are using the system to your benefit and the system's not taking advantage of you and digging you a big hole. So you get 5 main steps in your normal, let's call plan B, the normal working person. Your main first step is going to be, you have to learn to earn. If you don't know how to earn a good living, you're not going to go very far. You have to learn to live after that. With the earnings that you get, you learn to live within your own budget. The next one is going to be learning to saving. So now you've earned it, you're learning how to take and use it, and now you need to save it. Okay, now you've made those 3 steps. The next one's going to be learning to invest, and that's a big one, because now you're starting to have a little excess money. What do you do with it? And lastly, you're going to be donating, giving back, making the world a better place. So, that first step, learning to earn. What are you going to do to earn a living? You got to at least graduate high school. If you don't graduate high school, you're not going to make very much money. It's going to be pinching pennies, or you're going to be on assistance to where people have to help you live. If you graduate from high school, you've got around a $30,000 salary. There's nothing wrong with that. That's reasonable. It's not something that's going to be a lot of excess where you're going to have a lot of playtime, fun time later. So let's look at bettering yourself, further education, trade school, college, whatever it may be. If you complete those things, you're going to have a 70 or more % earnings bump because you continued your education. It gives you a lot more liquid cash flow. So when we go through that, let's take a peek. What does that mean? Check this out. Okay, everybody, here's our chance for a visual. We've gone through a lot of talking. I want to show you what your first 2 months as a high school graduate's salary is going to look like. This is $5,000. That's 2 months of earnings, and that equates out to a $30,000 per year job. So, not bad. You can support yourself, I'm sure, but we also need to learn about gross. Again, how much you earn is your gross income. You take out $1,500, and now you're down to $3,500, which this would be your net. That's how much you get to spend. That's how much your budget's going to take and be allocated for if you earn $30,000 per year as a high school graduate. So, that brings us to one of the main purposes we've been bringing up, which is, why should you further your education? No matter what type of education you're going to look into, there's a lot of choices. What is that diploma or that degree going to be worth? Well, I think this is kind of fun. Quite a bit. This is $3,500 net take home. That diploma or degree, now you've got $6,000 net take home. That's over a 70% increase compared to just having your high school diploma. So again, I don't know about you, but when you look at either of these piles, $3,500 to spend in your first 2 months as a high school graduate versus $6,000 to spend as your net income as further education, it's hands down. We want to definitely give you the opportunities to have this bucket available to do the things that you want to do. All right, I don't know about you, but I like visuals. That little visual is kind of fun. You can take and see what a $30,000 per year job does out of high school versus making 70% or more with furthering your education. Now we'll get into the gross and net a little more later, so you can see how much you earn versus how much you get to spend on your budgeting. But that learning to earn and you getting the options to have those bigger dollar earnings per year gives you more choices. And that's our main focus. Don't pigeonhole yourself to where you don't have that choice down the road. Get good grades. It lets you participate in sports. It lets you get the grants and scholarships because people are going to see your application to them, help me go to college. The more money you can have people give you, or the more scholarships that they take and provide you, the less that education costs. So it's very important that you perform now and do the best you can now to build that portfolio that shows I'm a hard worker, I have good work ethics, I put effort forward. When you ask for help, people are willing to help. If you don't put the effort forward, most people aren't going to be willing to help. So higher education, it's not required, but it sure helps. Let's get the options available. You don't have to make that decision now, but let's do the best we can now, so that's a choice you have later. Okay, let's move on and then learn to live. Now you've got your job, whatever that job is. $1 million a year, $10,000 a year. You have to understand how to use that. That's called budgeting. And like the video showed, you've got your gross and you've got your net. Your gross is how much you technically make. It's going to be what you're taxed on. Your net is what you take home. Your take home is what you get to spend. So the question is, what are you going to spend it on? You got your car payment, you got your insurances, you got your utilities, you got your rent, you know, whatever it may be, house payment. Budgeting means you take and live within your means, and you don't have to rack this up. This is not a good thing if you're using it on your day-to-day and you can't pay it off with what's in your checking account. So these are both very important. Now when you do your budget, you want to have part of that be an emergency fund. That's going to move us into learn to save. That's our next big step. If you don't save and you have the, oh shit, my car broke down, my transmission's out, my tire's all blue, whatever it may be, you have to have those reserves. If you put a new transmission on this, it's going to cost you more than double because you're going to have interest put on it. If you saved an emergency fund and you pay your transmission with cash, it's going to hurt because you had to use your cash. But you're not going to pay double because someone's charging you interest to use their money. So an emergency fund is very important. You make sure you understand, you know, I got to cover my rent. What if I get hurt? I don't get to work. Or there's, you know, something comes up, you have to help a family member. An emergency fund is very, very important, and a good portion of Americans right now don't have much of an emergency fund, just because they're used to playing now versus saving so they can play later. So there's a lot of pieces in there on the learning to live, learn how to do a checking account, learn the credit cards, learning to take and get the savings going. So that's very big key. And the learning to save, that emergency fund is just A1 at work. If that's the only thing you pull out of this, please make sure that's something you learn and start right now. A savings account, even if you have your phone die, you drop your phone in the water, you're going to have to replace that phone. Do you have the money to do that? All right, let's graduate into the fourth step. Now you've got the income, you've learned how to budget, you're starting to save and have an emergency fund, and now we got excess money. Investing helps you get towards that net worth. So you don't have to know exactly what that big number is, but if you start saving now, you get to deal with the time value of money. And that is two things. Time value of money when you have assets helps you. Time value of money when you have liabilities on a credit card, oh, it adds up even faster, but against you. So the time value of money when you save, it helps you earn money on the money you've saved, and therefore makes it to where you don't have to work as hard down the road. So it's that whole play now versus play later, and there's a happy median in between. You just have to find what works for you. The last thing when we take and do is going to be donating. And donating is just as important. That's going to have a lot of time availability that you can donate here when you're young, because you don't have a lot of money. When you get older, you may not have the time. You can start donating on a monetary side. But giving back to the community is very important as well. It's very important for your personal growth, and it's nice to give back for the people who helped you. All right, so what we went through is huge. Net worth is very confusing for a lot of people. A lot of adults still don't understand that. I want you to have an idea, at least in the back of your mind. So be thinking about what assets are, what liabilities are. On your income, be thinking about how much you want to make. And remember, what you make isn't what you get to spend. You get your gross that you make and your net that you get to spend, and learning how to do a budget. The biggest thing you can pull from this is talking about it with your friends, your teachers, your spheres of influence, and especially your parents. Find out what your parents have done. What do they like? Will they look back and say, you know, I wish I had done this different? Find out, because a lot of times those experiences, anybody and everybody most likely is willing to share with you what they like and what they look back at and say, you know, I'd have done this different. You should try it. Thanks, everybody. I hope you got some good information out of this, and we'll see you next time.